All right. So, hey everyone, my name is Tim. I'm with the marketing department here at StoryForge, and we are meeting with Sabrina Rucker, who is the CEO and founder of StoryForge. We're just going to ask some questions, find out a little bit more about her, a little bit more about StoryForge as a whole, and hopefully get a lot of you some of the question or some of the answers that you've had questions about. So, we know you're working on a graphic novel right now. So, tell us a little bit about your background as an author, an artist, a graphic designer.
Yeah, absolutely. So my earliest experience as an author was when I was probably about 5 years old, and my grandpa writes children's books, and he asked for ideas on his next one. And everything he had been working on up to that point was very grounded in reality. I mean, it was a
Mhm.
book about talking tractors, but the tractors were in realistic locations. And I was like, why not have the tractors go underwater? Why not have them go to space? Why not have them meet aliens? With those ideas, he completely changed the tone of the next three books in his series.
Mhm.
Um, and that's that's why I'm credited on the books that he has published. Terry the Tractor and the Martians, Terry the Tractor, Underwater. Beyond that, I've had an interest in writing for my whole life. I haven't had much time to do writing, although I've been an avid reader for all the energy that I wanted to put into doing creative work, like writing, went into reading instead because it's easier to consume the content than it is to produce it.
Yes.
In my final year of high school, I had a required project that was very open ended. It could be basically whatever I wanted it to be, but it had to be some kind of a real world application, some
Mhm.
kind of a meeting with people who are doing real jobs and getting mentorship on all these real things. So I reached out to the author of my favorite book, Eve Forward, who wrote the book Villains by Necessity, and on a whim was like, hey, I would love to adapt this into a comic book. Could I get the rights to do that?
Mhm.
And she thought it was more of a fan art thing, but I was a bit more serious than I think she realized. And I put together an entire script over the course of the next 2 years, um, and hired an artist and found a letterer and just started putting together the full on adaptation, graphic book adaptation of this story. Trying to get it published was what kicked StoryForge off, because I found that writing was a lot easier than publishing, which seemed completely backwards to me, given that writing is supposed to be one of the most difficult and personal and like just a trial of fire type activities. It seemed completely absurd that you would put yourself through that and then not be able to share all of the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into your work with the rest of the world because just of the way the system is set up.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty wild out there. So what were your experiences like trying to get published? Were you getting feedback, or are they just basically sending like a form response of, hey, no, no deal?
No, I didn't usually get a response, actually. It was usually just radio silence, which was
Wow.
worse, I think, because there would be some kind of a message on their site. It was usually, I'll get back to you if I like it within the next 1 to 2 months.
Wow.
And so I would submit something, and keep in mind, every submission took hours of time
Mhm.
because everyone had very specific individual requirements. I would submit something, I'd put my heart and soul into it. I'd be like, I think it's good. I think I'm good. I think the work looks good. And then I'd just wait, and I'd wait, and I'd wait, and I'd wait, and I'd check every day my inbox.
Mhm.
Did they like it? Did they like it? Did they like it? And nothing, and nothing, and nothing. The most soul crushing one, actually, was when I did get a response. I had a literary agent get back to me. Ooh, it must have been within about a month and a half of my submission. She sent me an email that said, I loved your work. I loved the story, I love the concept, and I can't think of anyone who would publish it.
Wow.
And I was like, what's the point? If you
No,
love it, I feel like I scored like every point
mhm.
in this trial. Like I was this should have worked, right? She loved it. She loved my work. The work was looking good, but I couldn't get, I don't know, it was just so frustrating. I can't quite describe. Like I was so elated at first. I was like, wow, this means I'm doing something right. Someone loves it. And then the more I sat with it, the more upset I became because it felt like I had gotten very close to
Mhm.
like winning at publishing, but through no fault of my own, I was still falling short. And that was kind of my aha moment for StoryForge because it felt like if I can find someone who does truly love what I'm doing and they still can't publish it, then what hope does anyone else have?
Yeah. That is I'm still reeling from that rejection letter. That makes no sense to me. But so that's
Yeah,
how the aha moment came about. But so generally, we talk about this kind of in the Slack a little bit. Like everyone we've ever explained StoryForge to has the same response of, all right, yeah, that's pretty cool. What was the general reception like when you started pitching StoryForge? Because there's really nothing quite like it out there. So did everyone respond to it?
you know, the pitch has gotten better recently. When I was first starting to pitch it, the idea wasn't very clear. I was just like, yeah, the system is broken. I want to make it better. It's probably going to be something like a game. And people were like, uh-huh, that's nice. And sometimes when we would, it was me and Derek at the beginning, kind of trying to reach out to every writer that we knew in our like network. And one of the people that we knew, a family friend, was a literary agent. So we were like, oh, this will be our contact. She knows everything. So we kind of pitched the idea to her. And at the time, StoryForge, it wasn't a platform for getting feedback. The idea was a platform for connecting hopeful writers to literary agents. She hated it. She was like, this will never work. I'm insulted that you're proposing it. It goes straight in the face of every ethics that literary agents are sent to follow. She was so against it that we actually haven't spoken to her in the years since we proposed it. It was very, very discouraging, and it was almost the end of StoryForge, to be perfectly honest. But we realized that there was so much emotion that was tied to the response that we must have been hitting on something, and it was worth continuing to explore. So that moment, we stopped trying to make it about working within the system, which is, making it easier for people to get in touch with literary agents, and decided, well, maybe the answer is to just see if we can do this whole publishing thing without the publishers that are existing right now. So,
Okay. So that actually kind of helps answer a question that we see floating out there every once in a while, why not just a regular publishing company? So I think you're kind of hitting on that. All right. So awesome. And then so obviously it just kind of started out as you and Derek. So talk about how the team has really just grown since then.
it's been incredible, honestly. So at the beginning, we were actively looking for people. We were recruiting, we were reaching out to different accelerator programs and going, hey, does anyone know anyone who could help us with this? Does anyone know anyone who could help us with this? And we were getting like crickets back. People would be like, yeah, I have someone, they work in agriculture. Does that help? And we'd be like, no, not really. We hired our lead architect and our first coder just from looking around the Twin Cities area, trying to connect with people who maybe would help us. And it wasn't like a spark of like, wow, that's a great company idea. It was more like, yeah, I could use some experience and I generally know you and this will work. But once we had those two first hires, it kind of domino effect into a bunch of other people because then our coder, he knew people who he brought in as well, and our lead architect, he had a friend who he thought would make a good, development full stack developer. So it kind of led one thing to another. And then in the meantime, I started working more on the social media side of things. And that's how I met you, and that's
Hmm.
how I met most of the rest of the marketing team too, because getting the word out, it turns out, is a great way to find people who are interested in the mission.
Yeah,
How about
absolutely. I remember
yeah,
seeing that ad and be like, "Oh, this is interesting. I'm excited about that."
yeah. Once we started social media, people started coming to us. But in the time before that, it was a real struggle to see if we could find the right team for the StoryForge at the beginning.
Okay, awesome. So speaking of the coding, the platform, and all that, what's a feature in StoryForge that you're most excited about?
I gotta say, I'm really excited for the mini game features that we have been working on. Um, it's gonna definitely change and evolve, and I'm sure the games will grow into a lot of different features. Right now, they are, like asks and answers, like someone give me a name for a grouchy old wizard who practices fire magic in Norway, and then it'll be people supplying a bunch of names and then voting on which one suits that description the best. And I think that's going to yield a lot of really fun results. I think some of them are going to be just plain ridiculous, like Bodie McBoatface style. But that's a lot of fun too. And sometimes even if that's not quite the name of the grouchy old wizard you're wanting, it could still, brighten your day.
Yeah, I personally love the Bodie McBoatface jokes, but not they're not for everyone. So obviously we have some details about the platform out there right now. Is there any particular feature that's upcoming that maybe the general public doesn't know about that you're ready to share or not quite yet?
Yeah, oh, I don't think that the general public realizes that they can customize their library cat. So, one of the biggest features for StoryForge that I'm most excited about, anyway, is that as you grow your skills as a writer, an editor, a reader, you will get, experience points and in-game currency, and both of these can be used to upgrade your personal virtual library however you would like to. And one of those upgrades is you can switch your default gray kitty cat to anything you like. I mean, we're looking at like little Cthulhu library pets and like dragon library pets. And of course, you could also just change the cat to like an orange cat or a black cat or like a purple sparkly cat if you want to. I think that's going to be one of the most fun parts of the platform. I'm really excited to see what kind of library pets people are most excited about.
I think that was one of my first questions where I was doing some work for you guys. Like, how can I change Draft the Cat? Can I change him? So I'm glad that's coming, and I know everyone's gonna be excited. So last question here. How are you gonna celebrate when StoryForge publishes its first story?
That's such a good question. Honestly, I haven't even thought that far ahead. It's been one moment to the next to the next. I'm like putting out fires left and right and just hoping that we make it to the next day. I think that when that happens, my celebration will be predictably pretty introverted. I think I will probably curl up with a good book, maybe like a cup of hot tea or a cup of hot chocolate, and I'll just curl up next to the fire and enjoy myself. And then after I've done that, I'll do the obligatory, celebration with everyone and go, yeah, we did it. And we'll, clink glasses and do the whole celebration like it's meant to be done. But for me personally, I think it's just going to be curling up and being cozy for maybe half a day.
I think that sounds absolutely perfect. So Sabrina, appreciate the time. I know these were a lot of questions that people had, so I'm glad that we can get them their answers. And we are looking forward to getting them more answers in the future and getting that platform out to everyone, hopefully relatively soon. But everyone keep in touch. And if you have any additional questions, head down to the description below where we'll have the link to the website. And we hope to see your writing soon.
Yeah.